So the census is something that happens every 10 years, and it's a way of counting all of the people that are in America on this one day, April 1st, 2020. And so they're counting every single person where they are on that day to get a complete count of the United States and its population. The census, there's also always this sort of paranoia that the government's using it to track us. However, with the census, they're only pulling statistics from your information. There's no identifiable information about you that's released until 72 years after the census, which is most of the American lifespan. We, as Native people, are the most undercounted population in America, more than double the undercount of the next race. So what that means for us is that we don't have a true idea of how big our population size is, and we don't have a true idea of how much funding our community really could be using. The census for the last few years, trying to prepare ourselves and also get involved in making sure that Indian country has as much funds to devote. It's extremely vital that Native Americans fill out the census because it's money that our communities are losing whenever we don't fill out the census. It's estimated that for each person that doesn't fill out the census, our communities lose $3,000, which adds up to $30,000 until the next census. And those are money that goes to funding our schools, they fund our roads, they fund every single federally funded program. So when we don't fill out the census as Native Americans, not only are we not getting an accurate count of how many of us there actually are in the United States, but we're also doing a disservice to our community because the programs that we run aren't fully funded.
The majority of the census will be taken online, but a lot of Indian country lacks access to broadband internet. Overall, tribal communities have limited resources and access to funding that supports.
So with this census, they count every single person that has a physical address is going to be getting a mail-in information to log on online and fill out their census. That only covers about 70% of U.S. households. For the other 30%, there's something called an enumerator, which is when a person comes to your door and asks you questions. For those of us who are living outside or don't have a permanent residence, an enumerator is either going to be coming to your shelter, they're going to be coming to your encampment, or if you have someone that's staying on your couch that doesn't live with you full time but stays with you the majority of the time, it's important that you count them on your census as well. So with the census, it's really interesting for Native Americans because there's actually two parts that we have to be really careful of. In mixed race households, it's really important that the person filling out the census, person number one on the census, is the Native American person because the way that that census works is that whoever fills out person number one, the entire household is considered that race. So if you're in a household with white and a Native couple and the white person fills out the census and is person number one, it's counted as a white household. And household data is really important because it measures how many Native families are in the US. So if you want your family to be counted as Native in this census, it's really important that you choose to be person number one and fill out the census on your form. With the census, it's also really interesting because within the last 30 years, there's the option to choose more than one race. What's tricky for Native Americans is that with the statistical data that they pull from your answers, you're really only counted as Native American in all of the data pulled if you only choose Native American. And that's not to say that being mixed race, it makes you any less Native. It means that for the census, it's really important that if you want to be counted as Native across the board, you're only choosing Native American as your ethnicity. Really, we have such a deep mistrust of the federal government. Native Americans have so many reasons to be wary of it, but when we're talking about the census, we're talking about funding for our community, funding for our children, and funding for our future. It's so important to take 10 minutes to fill out the census because it'll affect the next 10 years and how much money your community is really going to have free school lunch programs, after school programs, fixing our roads, and really building new housing and taking care of our elders the way that we want to. It's a political tool. It's an opportunity for us to be getting more dollars into our community and doing very little work to get it.